Is this thing on? Yep.
Yeah.
Goal for the next 13 minutes is really to think about how low-code capabilities can make it easier and faster for everyone to develop, particularly focused, I think, on building employee experiences. I work for a company called Zendesk. We build experience software for service for consumers, citizens, businesses, and employees. And Rakuten, Credit Karma, and Upwork are all Zendesk customers, I'm proud to say. And we've been just sort of doing this for 15 years and thinking about what the next level of innovation is for employee service. I think so much great content today on the change in behaviors, the change in demographics, and the change in expectations in new employees that are coming into our businesses. More and more, I think that digital is becoming the front door. It's building great, seamless, frictionless digital experiences for employees and basically moving employees through those journeys that's becoming increasingly important, right? We're noticing this trend where chief customer officers now talk a lot more, or chief people officers now talk a lot more like chief customer officers from 5 years ago. They have similar technology plans. They're in the digital outreach and data businesses. And their constituents just happen to be internal. So with those touch points, I think a lot of the challenges are around how do we build these systems. In the US, the growth of developers nationwide is about 8% year over year. So the Department of Labor Statistics anticipates there'll be a 1.2 million worker shortfall by 2026, right? I'm sure we all feel this in our organizations, trying to get something done, fighting for resources, trying to petition or put internal projects at the same level as external. Consumer partner up against employee. Now, the good news is that 70% of new applications developed by organizations will use low or no code, right? So what is a great example of a low-code application, right? I think the world's greatest low-code application is actually Microsoft Excel, possibly also email. If you think about it, there's no business problem that is not being solved by Excel and email. Like most problems start there. Sometimes they go into systems and systems systematize them, and then they go back there as everyone works around it, right? That's the low-code power that I think everyone in this room has. That's how we solve problems. I think the goal for sort of the low-codeization of, let's call it enterprise software, because that's what it is. The goal of that is to have the controllable utility of Excel, but also to give people the sense of power that they have over Excel, right? We're not reticent about sending out that worksheet and getting people to fill it in. We feel like we have authority to do that. We have, that's our domain. We have dominion over it. And so the low-code revolution hopefully is going to make that faster and easier. 2 work streams. Firstly, there are actual, what you would call card-carrying software developers. There are tools and changes for those that are coming in. And secondly, there's a movement that people are calling citizen developers, right? The idea that any non-technical employee within your purview is going to be able to basically manifest a system, or, systematize a process, create an experience for internal constituents or all employees, right? And we think they're going to outnumber actual developers by about 4 to 1. So for actual developers, the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. There's something like, GitHub Copilot, which is extraordinary, right? GitHub took every piece of code in their repository and they manage everybody's source code, basically. And they ran a AI large language model algorithm over it. And now you can basically say as a developer to GitHub Copilot, write me a routine to invert this matrix, build me something to do this. It has 100,000 daily users. And those 100,000 daily users are saying that 34 to 40% of their code has been written by Copilot, which is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary level. And I think it's going to basically, hopefully, tools like this will be democratized so that, the non-technical can kind of become, it'll write your Excel macro, right? It will go in a little bit further into the tools that you're doing and empower you and be an amplifier of the things that you're building. And there are other like crazy examples, right? Like, building image recognition software used to be something that took a lab full of PhDs. Now you can upload 10 photos to Loeb and you can create a plant identification system, right? The joke is, guess what plants everyone is identifying? But the low-code examples, I think, in some ways are more powerful. I don't know if you're familiar with Roblox. Roblox is a company, I would say, that democratized game development for a generation of people around the world, right? Developers and game developers can go into Roblox and create new games and experiences and have this captive audience fairly simply, but also players can feel like they have the power to create experiences and share them with their friends, right? Yeah, Roblox is clearly a development company, right? They're clearly going to be comfortable in this world, in this space, creating experiences. But they have 5 non-technical employees basically in their external support department, support operations, who manage the entire self-service experience. So they're controlling a bot and the knowledge content that's served up by that bot, and they're managing player and user journeys and all these other things, right? What's interesting is that they've sort of reached that point where they feel comfortable making the deploy. And so a thing that, when you hire a new software engineer, most companies, ourselves included, the thing that you do as soon as possible is get them to fix something or change something, and then you make them deploy it live on the site, right? So, Zendesk is like a 4 billion hits a day sort of application around the world with the, hundreds of millions of people using it, often not knowing they're using it, and getting a developer to do that thing, right? Some, early 20s, first job out of college, early career person, to press the button that deploys to the site, that could bring it down, that has that moment that impacts lives. That is an enormous step. It's an enormous journey for them, and it's a moment of confidence. And I think if you can do that for us, you've got it, right? We really miss doing that in person, right? But this is the life we lead now. But it's still super important. For citizen developers, I think few people have the confidence or feel the agency to be able to do that, right? Do they control the outcome? Is it okay for them, to basically alter a site or an employee experience, right? What if you're going to the employee portal and you're making significant changes that are going to impact tens of thousands of people in your community? That's a nervous moment. And so citizen development in more ways is less about the technology. The technology is kind of here, getting here, it's appearing, it's having impact, right? The people changes and just the idea of training people to have that confidence, feel that power, right? Be comfortable failing fast the way that most developers are, right? It's okay if it crashes. No one has to be nailed to anything. We'll just fix it. It's fine. It's what we do, right? Building out those experiences, I think, is going to be extremely important. And why is it important? Well, I think I think of myself, my 10,000 hours is in software, right? I think of myself as a coder. And in employee experience land, right, I'm basically, a low EQ tourist in Peopletown, right? Peopletown is not where I live. It's not my expertise. I'm really good in this middle column, right? Given a question, I will provide an answer. That is, I think that's the MO. That is what I do. And I think I speak for the technologists of the world, right? We're pretty comfortable in that question-response thing. Automation, recommendation, prediction. I can make it more efficient. We can build the technology to do those things, right? We're not going to expand out super effectively into research and beyond, into these other pillars, right? The challenges we have with employees right now are challenges around engagement, right? Around building connectedness. I think everyone, in our data, we've seen a 2x increase in the number of inquiries from employees in the last couple of years, basically since the start of the pandemic. So you have all dealt with this influx of, basically you moved everything to digital. You dealt with the influx of digital inquiries, right? Sometimes it wasn't pretty, but mostly it got done. The questions were answered, things happened, there's a bunch of Excel sheets, there's some emails in the back room, it all got taken care of, right? Sweet. What is not necessarily happening is the proactive and the preventative, because to me, that is how we manifest into, well, what is the engagement enrichment that we're building? How are we creating experiences for our employees, at all points of their journey, from, awareness and recruitment all the way into offboarding? How are we building the right experience? That isn't going to come from the low EQ tourists in Peopletown like me, right? The technologists probably don't have the knowledge, the connections, the experience to be able to do that. I think that comes from your teams beginning to feel like they have the tools, they've been given the ability, they've been given room to fail and make mistakes, right? That is what you're teaching that developer who might bring the site down. It's fine. We'll get over it. We'll roll forward. They've been given that moment, right? That confidence. And also that their time is now, right? It is time for the citizen developer to pick up the toolkit, to begin creating the experiences, and to begin kind of moving towards a bigger engagement with their people, with their users, with connections. And so, thank you. That is sort of the pitch and the short moment that speaks to low-code development, citizen developers, and I think the way that we see the world. Happy to take any questions or cede time back to the floor. Thank you. I see a hand disembodied from other things in the light.
So the problem between your different worlds is that in order for the...
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So the problem with your different worlds is that in each of those worlds, there are the people who are deciding either from above or voluntarily what they're going to work on. Unfortunately, if they make the decision based on the information in that world, it will always be the wrong decision, because they need the information from the other worlds in order to understand the perspective of where the work they're going to do would have any impact. Mm-hmm. And without that information from the other worlds, they will always work on a less important thing, which will have less impact, which will solve fewer problems, which will do less of what we need to do. So if we don't figure out a way to interconnect the worlds and flow the information back and forth iteratively, which theoretically could be partially done by AI, but would need to be really carefully guided, we don't get where we need to go. So how do we fix that separate worlds problem, which will just kill us?
Couple of thoughts on that. I'm more in the camp of AI as an accelerant of the fires that we start, less as a fire starter. And so when I deploy AI for some time to come, right, it'll be great to help turbocharge some of the activities or fill in the blanks on what I'm trying to do. But I'm providing the stimulus and the input, because I'm sentient, it's not. And I think how that speaks to your problem is, in my mind, back to that chief people officers, chief customer officer. Chief people officers have been in the data business for a long time, right? Low-code development, the tooling that we have is going to make that a lot easier. But they're really, really good, quite honestly, at sampling the zeitgeist of the people they serve, of the market they're in, of what other people are doing. And the tools and techniques there, I think, are just as applicable to our internal citizens and the way that we deal with them. And so, I think data helps with prioritization and helps you understand, right? The idea that, of the tens of thousands of Amazon customer service agents, any of them can take a product out of the catalog, I think is incredibly important. And we have to think about, well, as we map the ideas of the greatest service companies into employee service, what do we pull from that to really change the experiences of our employees and make them better? And then secondly, how do we make sure that both the data problem and the process output problem are being solved by the citizens who are closest to the data and know what to do? Because I think it's with data that you change prioritization. I may or may not have answered your question.
Come to the end.
Thank you.
How about a hand for Adrian, please? Wonderful. So citizen.